Hello, my beautiful viewers, and happy 2025. I am still processing the fact that it's 2025 outside. That's a sci fi year. It's not real. It can hurt me. So I needed to stay in 2024 a bit longer. And is there a better way to do that than to ramble about best and worst movies and TV of the year? Probably not. So today I'm doing just that. But before I get into my list, I need to mention that 2024 saw a giant shift in my movie and TV watching habits. Namely, I stopped watching new releases just to be in the loop and have something for a water cooler talk. And I stopped keeping track of everything new in order to be considered a real movie fan. Now, when I'm faced with the choice of what to watch, I ask myself, what's in it for me? What happens if I don't watch it? And if I answer only a check mark next to the title on Letterboxd and nothing, then I safely skip it. This year I dropped a few TV series and missed a billion sequels, prequels, reboots that were hyped up for a week and then disappeared into oblivion. I got rid of this stupid load of expectations and now I only watch what I really want to, for whatever stupid reason, like thirst watching, and not out of habit or just because it's a hot new thing. So, with that off my chest, let me tell you about the movies I enjoyed the most in 2024, and this is my top 10. Number 10, Young Woman and the Sea. This is a biopic about Trudy Ederle, the first woman to cross the English Channel. The real story has been obviously condensed and embellished for the movie, but this is an integral part of any biopic and can be ignored. After all, you can read all this in the book of the same name by Glenn Stout, which the film was based on, or at least on Wikipedia. But what the film has done well is to convey the essence of Trudy's story. And her story is about going against all odds, finding inner strength and determination, and of course, fighting not only for yourself, but for all the women after you. This is an ode to women's sports and skills, and an illustration to a thesis that I've already known, that women had to fight with all their might for the rights that men had just by birthright, even for the right to just swim. Number 9, Time Stalker, a funny, whimsical, dreamlike sci-fi comedy about our endless cycles, about the idea of soulmates that was drilled into our heads, and the inevitable epiphany that comes with realizing that the most important person in your life is you. This is a story of Agnes, who falls in love with the same man across many lifetimes, but they are not destined to be together because every time in every reincarnation they are separated by death. I like finding indie gems like this. They immediately show the personality and sense of humor of the author. In this case, it's the wonderful English comedian Alice Lowe who directed and wrote it and starred in the main role. And despite the shoestring budget, the film looks very cool with interesting visual and color solution of different historical periods. In short, this film seemed to be made just for me and my strange sense of humor. Bonus, Jacob Anderson is in it. Number 8, Abigail. I know this is a strange choice for the best of the year list, but I had a blast watching it, and nowadays I feel like evaluating movies based on vibes and my enjoyment of them rather than the cinephile's criteria of excellence. Abigail starts as a run-of-the-mill thriller about a team of mercenaries kidnapping a girl to get a ransom from her rich dad. But then I was so glad I almost never watched trailers, because it's better to start Abigail completely unprepared. The trailer and promo materials reveal too much, if not everything, which is so strange. After all, the unexpected change in tone and even genre was a big part of my excitement. But even if you know the twist, you can still enjoy it immensely. Abigail is funny, campy, and bloody. Yes, it does follow all the rules of its eventual genre, but it follows them with passion and self-irony. Number 7, Love Lies Bleeding. Imagine the 80s, sweaty women in the gym. Sweaty women in the gym falling in love with each other and committing crimes. Isn't it a dream? Love Lies Bleeding is hot, juicy, and surprisingly magical. At first, the film is so immersed in the atmosphere of the backwater 80s America that I felt every frame almost physically. The smell of a gym, of sparkling muscles, fiery chemistry and undisguised eroticism, and blood splashing in all directions. But gradually, little by little, surreal moments are slipping through, either the characters' fantasies or their glitches, and these moments are so effective in helping us understand the inner lives of our main characters. As a result, this harsh and grounded love story turns out to be almost a fairy tale, only more like something from the Brothers Grimm. I also love the doomed romance of it all, which was not doomed because of homophobia for once, and Kristen Stewart and Kathy O'Brien were absolute powerhouses in every sense of the word. Number 6. Conclave. The Pope suddenly dies, and all the cardinals gather in the Vatican to hold a conclave, the election of a new pope. Cardinal Lawrence is responsible for organizing the conclave, and he learns more than he wanted about the candidates for the papacy. Conclave, or as I call it, Cardinal Lawrence and the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad week, is an interesting look at the internal structure of a closed community that functions just like any other but considers itself exceptional. This is a tense political thriller about a power struggle between catty, gossiping old men who do not see their own uselessness. But also, this is a movie about finding at least some meaning in what you do when you are catastrophically fed up with your job. For some reason, I was sure that there would be some super twists and conspiracy theories, but everything turned out to be much more realistic, and I can't decide whether it was for the better or not. Number 5. Caddo Lake. I started the movie just for Dylan O'Brien, and again I was glad I hadn't seen the trailer because it spoils the main twist. But since the trailer did it, I think I can do it too. What begins as a family drama about the difficult life of the working class gradually turns into a mystery supernatural thriller with disappearances and timeline jumps. But the film still remains a family drama at its core. Basically, it is a story about living with grief, forgiving people, and accepting your family. Caddo Lake was an unexpected find for me, not only because timey-wimey shenanigans automatically raise my interest in any movie, I'm a time travel nerd, but because it held my ever-elusive attention and evoked genuine emotions. And this is a much bigger deal in the current state of abysmal attention spans. Number 4. My Old Ass. Talking about timey-wimey stuff. My Old Ass tells the story of Elliot, who on the day of her 18th birthday meets a future version of herself. 39-year-old Elliot begins to give herself advice on how to live her life better. My Old Ass tore my heart into pieces, but at the same time left warmth in each of these pieces. On the one hand, this coming-of-age film is a story about growing up and understanding your place in the world. But on the other hand, it is a story of experiencing a midlife crisis and accepting your past. This is not a film about how, endowed with life experience, we would have lived our lives differently. Not at all. The film tells us that every milestone in our lives is valuable exactly as it was, and that our younger selves can also teach us something. The film tells us that the passage of time is a gift and a curse, that waiting for a catch prevents us from enjoying life, that we should value every moment as our last, and that sometimes it's great to be naive and spontaneous. Anyway, in the end I was just a puddle of tears and snot, but damn, I wish I could let my 18-year-old self watch this movie. Number 3. A Different Man. This is a story of Edward, an actor with a condition that completely deforms his face. One day he is offered an experimental procedure that, to his surprise, completely cures the disease. It's the substance for neurotic New Yorkers, or Charlie Kaufmanification of the topic. What are we willing to do to become attractive? Why do we believe that our lives will be better if we achieve this? Will we become happier? Will we become more valuable? And in general, how does society evaluate us? Is it always by appearance? What if we remain monsters even when we meet all beauty standards? But don't expect a deep drama. It's more of a black comedy wrapped in a psychological thriller where each plot twist is so much crazier than the previous one that it ends up being pure, absurd satire. It's also a meta story about an actor who plays himself in a play about his life and the inevitable mindfuck that follows. I enjoyed this movie an embarrassing amount, and a major part of that was Sebastian Stan, whom I love tenderly and who deserves every award for this performance. Number 2, Anora. This is the story of a New York exotic dancer, Anora, who meets the son of a Russian oligarch. Swayed by youthful passion and stupidity, they spontaneously get married. The guy's family is not happy about this. Anora is the brainchild of a director and screenwriter, Sean Baker, who makes films about ordinary people, shedding light on their usually ignored lives. Anora tells the story of an unremarkable girl who suddenly gets a chance to escape the darkness of her life, but the fairy tale does not work out. Because even while giving this film hilarious gags and much needed levity, Sean Baker stays firmly grounded and does not push the pretty woman myths. And although I rate this film very highly, I am of two minds about it. On the one hand, evaluating it on my new scale of did the movie make me feel something, was I bored, Anora is simply amazing. I experienced the full range of human emotions and wanted it to run even longer than its almost 2.5-hour runtime. But on the other hand, there is an evil feminist inside me who laments the excessive sexualization of the main character, sometimes completely unnecessary sex scenes, and most importantly, the fact that we don't look at the world through Anora's eyes in the film. We look at Anora through the eyes of two male characters. In the first half, through the eyes of the fuckboy Vanya, who sees Anora as a sexy, horny escort. In the second half, through the eyes of Igor, a thug with a heart of gold, who sympathizes with Anora and sees her as a person. And we only catch glimpses of Anora's inner world and only in the context of her relationship with these men. But okay, sometimes the evil feminist mode can be turned down and I can enjoy a skillfully told story, especially when Mikey Madison shines and amazes in the main role. I haven't seen her anywhere before, but I just fell in love with her completely. Number 1, Challengers. Luca Guadagnino decided to make tennis sexy again and chose this sport for his electrifying story of suppressed desires and uncompromising pursuit of greatness. The main characters try to achieve power and importance in different ways, through tennis, sex, manipulation, and all this is so intertwined that none of them can get out of it. And they don't want to. Why? When that's what makes their lives interesting. Challengers is a rare movie that made me not just look up from my phone, but forget about its existence for 2 hours. There were only 3 characters and 1 chord, and it captured me in a way that none of the recent blockbusters did. Another point of excellence is the techno soundtrack by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, which seemed distracting and inappropriate at first, but with each new tense scene with pulsating beats, I realized that this was an ingenious musical solution. And that's it for the best ones. Let me go through the worst ones now. As I said, 2024 was a year of disillusionment with franchises, and I decided not to watch so many sequels, prequels, and reboots. But unfortunately, I still saw some of them, mostly during the movie watching sessions with my brother and a lot of wine. Anyway, here's the worst of the worst this year in a random order because I couldn't be bothered to rank them. Rebel Moon 2. The second part of Zack Snyder's space saga is even worse than the first. The main problem with both the first part and the second is Zack Snyder. I can admit that he is an outstanding visual innovator. He has his own style and he knows how to make his films look attractive, but he just doesn't know how to tell compelling stories. And in Rebel Moon, he took a swing at building an entire universe, and he can do it. He spends an unacceptable amount of time on unnecessary but aesthetic scenes. He has no idea how to build interesting relationships between the characters. He ignores the show don't tell rule and slows down the pace of his his magnum opus with dull expositional dialogues. Basically, he starts his story from its most boring place, leaving all the juiciest parts for 2 seconds flashback. Why is Snyder telling us a story about farmers when he really wants to tell us a story about the betrayal of an emperor and a princess with superpowers? Why do we need 10-minute slow motion harvest scenes? How did anyone involved in the production let him get away with this? And most importantly, why do we need 4 more parts? Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. This is a sequel to the legacy sequel of the original Ghostbusters, and it was made just to milk childhood nostalgia from millennials and Gen Xers, and to build the foundation for a future franchise aimed at Zoomers. Despite the franchise fatigue, I honestly expected something good, because the previous part, Afterlife, was decent. Despite the transparency of its intention to milk nostalgia, Afterlife was somewhat a passion project, and it really tried to make the viewer love the new characters. While I was watching Frozen Empire, though, I had only one thought: nothing happens in this movie. That is, there are some events, but they are devoid of tension and emotional background, and in no way affect either the world or the characters. Only one character, Phoebe, has a story arc, but the rest of the new characters and the original Ghostbusters could have been replaced with cardboard cutouts and nothing would have changed. In short, it was very sad, and if it wasn't for the wine, it would have been even sadder. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. This is an action movie about how, in the midst of the Second World War, Churchill decides to assemble his Suicide Squad and send them to sink Nazi ships. Surprisingly, this is based on real events, however, only the outcome and the names of the characters remain from the actual Operation Postmaster. Guy Ritchie clearly wanted to make his own mix of Inglourious Basterds and Kingsman, and the result was, as I have already noted, Suicide Squad. The first one. The events of the film seem to be interesting, but they are presented so uncreatively, and the characters are all paper thin. And even the action doesn't save this movie much, because there is no tension whatsoever. The characters fight off the Nazis so easily and so casually without breaking a sweat for a second that it feels like watching a video game playthrough in an easy mode. Madame Web. Of course. I felt cheated. No, I didn't have any hopes that something good would come out of it. On the contrary, the film was claimed to be the worst movie in the history of cinema, so I was greedily rubbing my hands, expecting something phenomenally bad, maybe even so bad it's good, or hilarious bad. But in the end, I got just a mediocre early noughties nostalgia, CW level boring bad movie. Well, yes, it's bad, but not bad enough to become something memorable. Miller's Girl. To finish the top 5 of the worst, I'll turn to something other than blockbusters. Miller's Girl was so perplexing. The film reeks of the sexism of the 90s erotic thrillers, only masked by a message about girl power. I was expecting a turn on the teenage seductress ruining a man's life trope, but this is exactly it. It even extends an inexcusable amount of sympathy to the man to the point that it paints his wife as an evil alcoholic who pushed him to a relationship with his student. What the hell? Someone should have left their ex-reader fanfics on Wattpad where they belonged. And here, I'm about to get some real hate. I couldn't put this movie into the worst list because it's not bad, but it's the movie that I enjoyed maybe even less than all the genuinely bad ones, and it's Dune Part 2. There are films that are not very competent, but they go straight to the heart. And there are films that are masterfully made, but do not evoke any emotions. Dune is in the second category for me, and I feel very lonely, not so much in my dislike of, but in my indifference to this franchise. I kind of realize that I'm watching a technically flawless film that elevates what could have been an ordinary action movie to the level of a work of art, but still, no soul, no spark. Just as I wrote on Letterboxd, never before have I felt less connected to the characters, not even one. Such a beautiful craftsmanship, but no soul whatsoever. Big thanks to 3 people who agreed with me. You can also follow me on Letterboxd though, link in the description. Anywho, with movies out of the way, let's talk a little bit about TV series. 2024 was a very slow year for me in terms of TV watching because I only watched 5 new series and 6 new seasons. You can probably guess my favorite new season of the year. If you don't, it's Interview with the Vampire, but I won't go into detail because you can just look at the rest of my channel. Regarding new TV series, I can say that the best one for me was Ripley. I love it when TV series don't take their viewers for fools and don't think they have to constantly shake, rattle, and roll in front of the audience to keep their attention. Sometimes the meaningful silence, the cinematography of the middle of the last century, and the bone-chilling blank stare of Andrew Scott are enough. This series is so masterfully made, both visually and narratively, that I, a person with the attention span of a goldfish, could not tear myself away from the 20-minute scenes in which there is no background music or dialogue. It's just me, left alone, with the cold, frightening mind of a character who seems to reject everything human. And the most incredible thing is that as much as Ripley is disgusting, I also want him to get away with it. Oh, the allure of the dark corners of the soul. I also quite enjoyed Agatha All Alone and Dark Matter, and thoroughly enjoyed new seasons of Only Murders in the Building and Inside number 9. Such a pity that it was the last one. I also decided to drop the Rings of Power, the Umbrella Academy, Shrinking, and What If, because I realized I didn't care about the characters at all. And for me, unfortunately or not, characters are always more important than the plot. And that's it for the year in review. What are your top 5s of the best and the worst? What TV series did you like the best? Have you stopped watching anything? Let me know in the comments. And as usual, if you want to see more of me and of content like this, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you then. Mwah.